Welcome to the Being Known podcast with my friend, Dr. Kurt Thompson, MD.
And don't you forget it, my friend, Pepper Sweeney, the most beautiful man in the world. Dude, I'm in Charlottesville.
We are here to discover and explore what it means.
We are. What it means to be the most beautiful. We're here to discover what it means to be the most beautiful man in the world. I'm in Charlottesville at UVA 2 nights ago, and we're waiting to start this with an auditorium full of undergrads.
Yes.
And there were folks from the community that came as well, and a gentleman, one of the first people that came into the auditorium, he's sitting out there, and he just shouts, "Where's the most beautiful man in the world?"
Gosh,
he's
you have created a
he's
monster.
He said, yeah, it's okay that you're here, but I'm actually hoping to see Pepper. Thank you very much.
We are so grateful that you, the most beautiful listeners in the world, are here with us today as we continue on the marathon season of Rupture and Repair. We were just talking earlier that every time we record one of these, we realize that there's more to talk about. We realize that there's another whole subject, another whole episode that we need to record. And so, we feel like this is important work. And from what we're hearing from you, it's effective and it's stuff that's worthy of your time. And so we'll continue on and keep digging in. And today we are going to be talking about rupture and repair and forming resilience. What do you mean by forming resilience, Kurt?
Yeah. Well, in general, there is research that looks at this notion of resilience as being our capacity to durably withstand distress. So this is, this comes in 100 different, shapes and sizes. Emotional distress, physical distress. Am I able to withstand a difficult conversation and the emotions that come up with that? Am I able to be, walk through a difficult conflict with someone? But also, am I, we talk about what it means for us to be in shape, kind of athletically, right? Can you withstand, or do you have resilience, the kind of resilience that would be required to run a marathon? The kind of resilience that has you like doing CrossFit or doing Orange Theory, right? You're developing resilience, which is every time you push the body, you're asking the body to do something that yesterday it wasn't really quite ready to do, but its capacity to do the next thing, to put the next plate on the bar that you're going to bench press, right, to go the next 3 miles, depends upon the body's capacity to withstand and the distress that it is undergoing at the time. And we can say that resilience is different than just tolerance. We're not just saying, I can tolerate something. We're saying that I not only tolerate, but I am actually growing through that experience. And this notion of resilience then permeates research. We talk about, there's a term that we use called the allostatic load of stress. And there is a way of measuring both with how much stress hormone levels that we have, muscle tension, and so forth. You mentioned how much allostatic load of stress do I have? Do I carry with me in my very physicality? And in what ways am I responding to that allostatic stress, the stress that I'm encountering? What am I doing in response such that I'm not A, pretending it doesn't exist, or B, I am only succumbing to it. It's just pancaking me. It's not doing either of those, but I am regulating it. I am responding to it in a way in which I come out the other side in such a way that I am actually more durable. I have greater capacity to withstand greater stress tomorrow than I did today. In the same way that you do Orange Theory, when you push yourself so that you withstand more tomorrow than you did yesterday because of all the work that you're doing. And so one of the things that we recognize is that resilience is not just a thing that just magically happens. We, in fact, need to undergo a certain stress load in order for resilience to develop. This is why, your femur, long bones in your legs, in your upper leg, in swimmers and bicyclists, so cyclists and swimmers have lower density in their femurs because the femurs are not hitting the ground as hard or as often because they're spending so much time actually not asking their body to weight bear.
Right.
And so for the bone to develop resilience, it actually requires a certain pressure, a certain workload for it to happen. And we would say that when it comes to our emotional and spiritual and relational resilience development, for the creation of beauty and goodness, it's a direct result of the effective repair of necessary ruptures. We necessarily have to have ruptures that are effectively repaired to develop secure attachment. This is what happens when we have these what we've talked about before when we talk about ruptures, that we have benign ruptures, we have limit-setting ruptures. We can even have toxic ruptures that are repaired if they are effectively repaired. Like we can bark at our kids in a way that we really regret. And if we go back and effectively repair that, such that I'm not just repairing that, I'm going to repent, meaning I'm going to turn around and I'm going to make sure that kind of a thing, as much as I can, either doesn't happen ever again, or be at the very least, I'm gonna work to reduce the frequency or the intensity of this. I'm gonna work to move toward my child, work to move toward my friend. That which is what repentance is all about. I think we're going to talk more about that in another episode. But this notion that rupture leads to disintegrating steps to the degree that even the most minor ruptures collectively or toxic ruptures are left unrepaired, when those things happen, that's when resilience is undermined. When we are not repairing the toxic ruptures, or we ineffectively do so, or there are minor ruptures that are just left unattended, that's when resilience does not develop. But when those things do happen, when we are repairing those kinds of ruptures, we do develop secure attachment, and we do develop resilience, our capacity to put more and more weight-bearing load on this. It reminds me of Richie Davidson's research at the University of Wisconsin with shy children, and how at the end of the day we recognize that those children, there's a whole cohort that was followed for 25 years. We might have talked about this in a previous episode in a different season. This notion that those children whose parents were attentive to the fact that their kids were shy, and what they did was they allowed their kids to be pushed right up to the threshold of stress that made their kids have to work, but they were attuning to not let their kids get overwhelmed with it, to the point where their kids were kind of being, they weren't able to function well. But they did put their kids in the places where the kids had to work hard, where the kids demands were placed on them. Parents did not shy away, as it were, from asking their shy kids to do hard things, but they were typically present with them and making sure that they weren't getting overwhelmed with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
so what we recognize, we're talking about resilience because we want to recognize that, we are not, we've said this before often, that what God is doing, we are practicing for the heaven that is coming. We are building resilience not just to make us tougher people, but we are building resilience because what will it mean for us to be in the new heaven and new earth when we are going to be fully transparent with each other? We are fully going to name all the hurts that were ever committed in order to fully forgive and fully repent. What is it going to be like to be in a universe in which this will be the expected norm, in which, because shame will not be part of the conversation, we will not have it as a coping strategy to keep us from doing the work that we are called to do in order to be able to live in that new heaven and earth. And so one of the things that we want to recognize is that this notion of building resilience is part of the work of repairing ruptures. And we want to name the reality and presence of ruptures and my commitment to repair in any and all settings. When we have, when as physicians, a patient comes in and we want to prescribe a medication to them, we want to say to them, well, here are going to be the potential side effects. Because what we want them to know is that we're not just giving you a medicine to help you feel better. We also know that the taking of the medicine might require some work on your part to push through some of the side effects that you might have. And in so doing, you're actually building resilience in the very act of receiving treatment. It's not just, oh, the medicine will make me feel better. I'm inviting you to engage in something that necessarily might create an environment that's going to require more work for you rather than less. So we want to name these side effects. If I'm running an organization, if you're going to come and be where there are other humans in the room, eventually things are going to happen you're not going to like. And it's not just going to be something like it's not going to be in the abstract. It's going to be Sam or Joy or Sarah or Bill, who is the thing I don't like. But if I'm running the organization, I want to say to people, hey, just so you know, because we're doing a good and beautiful thing, ruptures are going to happen here. We know this, but what we want you to know is that we are all about repairing the ruptures when they come, because we are about building resilience. We are about practicing for the heaven that's coming. And I don't care who we're working for. We could be a teacher. We could be a truck driver. We could be anybody. We're in these conversations. We're in these relationships. But if I'm the parent of the organization, if I'm the CEO, if I'm the president, if I'm the leader of this system, I want to recognize, oh my gosh, these things are going to happen. And it is an opportunity. As we said, we're looking for opportunities to repair ruptures. And so what we're really doing in saying this in advance, we're mitigating the fear of being afraid.
Kurt, just quickly, I did a tour recently, and before we went out, we gathered the team together to talk about some things that were going to be happening on the road. And one of the things that I talked about with them is, there are going to be issues. There are going to be ruptures. And I used that language, and I said, and we need to be about people that are going to be repairing those. And these are some steps that we can take to make sure that, we're doing this in a correct way. And so speaking that out front, I think before we even went on the road, and then reminding people along the way was a way to, it really did help us. To not have a lot of times you go out and, you're together all the time, and there's issues that come up from all different outside sources, and you're trying to figure them out, and somebody says something, and then it becomes this thing. Well, we didn't have really any of that this time. When we did, we dealt with it right away, which was, yeah.
Dude, that's again, this is, we've said before, every system models itself after the family, and you're being a great dad in that regard. That's exactly what you're doing. And so what a powerful example for our listeners to imagine, what kind of systems do you occupy in which you have the opportunity to be the person who, like you, is going to name in advance that this is going to happen, and we are going to get after it. We are going to be people who approach this as people of repair. And so one of the things we find that we're doing in this way is that we're creating comfort and confidence both systemically within the system as well as within individuals. And so in naming these things in advance, the very naming it in advance is already building resilience.
Yeah.
Because when we tell patients, you might have this side effect, at first glance, it looks like, all we're doing is we're talking about the side effect of the medication. But what I'm really trying to communicate to the patient in advance, without them even have to ask, I am saying to them, I'm thinking about you ahead of the curve. So that when the side effect comes, I don't just want you to know, Kurt said that this side effect would come. I'm aware that what the patient is going to be aware of is that I'm being remembered. Or this is not just a thing about the side effect. This is the thing about the relationship that I have with my doctor. When the CEO or the president or the tour director says, "This is what's going to happen,"
Yeah.
Phyllis, my wife, a child development specialist, and she likes to talk about that one of the roles of parents is to interpret the world for their child. That's our job, one of our jobs. And one of the ways that we interpret the world for our child is to interpret it in advance. Is that we let kids know. So it's just something as simple as like it's a 5-minute warning. Like, whoa, you're at a play date, you're having a good time. You say like, in 5 minutes, we're going to leave. The kid doesn't just hear this, as a 5-minute warning. From a neurobiological standpoint, what the kid senses is the felt sense of being seen. Because, okay, it's a minor thing. But maybe I'm really enjoying it. I don't really want to leave. But I am already what's happening is that somebody is creating within me that in the middle of the rupture that's about to come. It's minor, right? I'm having to leave my play, but I don't want to leave my play date. But I'm already having someone who's coming for me in this regard, and thickening my capacity to resiliently move through that very minor grief, so that I recognize that in the middle of this loss that I'm about to have, that I'm not by myself in this regard. And this is what we're doing. We're building this mass effect, right? What we're saying, we talk in here a bit about the principle of relational mass effect in systems, that when we let people know together, collectively, we are a body of people whose commitment is to repair ruptures. We are expanding the window of tolerance for individuals, and we're becoming this wide place to stand for others. We read in the 31st Psalm in the 9th verse that thou hast created for me a wide place to stand. This idea that the psalmist in 31 is writing about this notion of I'm in trouble, and if I'm in trouble and I have to fall over, I don't want to fall over on the edge of a cliff where I might fall to my death. I want to fall over in a wheat field where I have a wide place where if I stumble, I'm not going to fall to my death. And you create a wide place for me to stand, and the wide place is this community of people that we as leaders can enter into. And recognizing that, remember that Genesis chapter 2, we've talked about this here as well. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, they were immature and they were naive. And as you read the text throughout, we recognize, oh gosh, God is really serious about wanting partners. But he wants them to grow into their ownership of the very partnership itself. He doesn't just want to make them fully mature, fully able to be with him, all packaged and wrapped. He wants them to fully embrace and own the process of the growth. So it's like, if we're born into the world already, fully knowing all that we need to know from our world history class, and we already know our algebra, and we already know the things that we're supposed to know. Mm-hmm. I don't have any sense of my awareness of that material actually being mine.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything to own this. It's kind of like waking up as a MacBook and discovering I have all this stuff and I'm just able to do this, which is why I so appreciate, the word artificial intelligence, and that everybody kind of gets, it seems, like nobody says artificial wisdom. Right.
That idea is that we've talked about this before, when the Duncan Hines first started putting the instant cakes on the shelves, the boxes, they had everything in them, including the egg, the dried egg, and all you had to do was add water, and nobody was buying the cake mixes. And so they had this marketer bring in a bunch of, ladies, because that was who was making the cakes back in those days, and bringing them in and do a market research, try to figure out why aren't you buying this? Make your life so much easier, and that's delicious. And they said, well, we don't feel like we're doing anything. We don't feel like we're really baking. We don't feel like we're really a part of this. That's kind of what he got out of it. So what do? They take the egg out of the box, the dried egg out, so that now you have to crack a couple of eggs and mix it and become more a part of the process. And then they started, flying off the shelves after that, right? And yeah.
Right. And granted, when we look at that story in Genesis chapter 3, where Adam and Eve have to face a test. There's a test. And when we hear that word test, we're often thinking like, oh, test, am I adequate, right? Did I pass it? Am I adequate, or am I going to, be failed?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the general notion of the notion of the word, the English word test in the Bible is to like we're testing silver, we're testing gold. God is refining this. My kids went to a school called Rivendell, where for many years the headmaster, his name is Steve Larson, he was teaching in the fourth form, which these are seventh and eighth graders, and he would teach. People would give a test, and students would, and then he'd give it again, and then he'd give it again. And we might say this is a bit unorthodox, but what is he doing? He's wanting students to master the material. He's wanting the test itself to be the thing that inculcates material.
Interesting. Yeah.
Into a kid. I remember when I was in medical school, and what was, we would have all these exams that we would take, and then there would be a session that would be held afterwards. After the exam is done, we'd get our scores back, and then the professors, for whoever wanted to come, professors would hold a session to go over the test. And some of it, of course, was, for students to gripe about how this question or that, and you can imagine medical students are just like, they're fine-tooth comb with every jot and tittle about, well, that wasn't really a fair question, and so forth. Anyway, right. But one of the primary reasons that the professors were going over the test was because they wanted the test itself to teach us, to refine us. Like they're not just like, well, does Kurt know material or not? It's like, look, you're here. We want you to be successful. We want everything we do to be something that is refining you into becoming the most of a physician that you can possibly become. Like this is what we really want you to become. And so this is where it's difficult for us, right? And then we get around this, this language in Hebrews where we read where the writer says, and what son does a father love whom he does not discipline? And we're like, that language makes, whatever. And we're like, no, like this whole, our culture makes it really difficult for us to imagine that the repair of rupture is in any other category other than like something bad has happened and we somehow need to fix it. And that's mostly what this is about. And it's hard to do, but I know it's better for us, and we'll all feel better when we get on the other side of repairing the rupture. But the notion that what God is doing is trying to help us practice for heaven. That God is refining us. And frankly, I need the experience of, like, I'm aware of how when there is conflict, like I just want to run away. I just want to, when there's been rupture, when people have upset me, I either want to, privately just rage about it, or I want to say nothing at all. And I'm just like, I just want to make sure that we are really aware that because if we're doing this together, and this, again, the most beautiful listeners in the world, who are the people who are enabling us to do this work of repair effectively? So I preached a sermon back in March focusing on John chapter 20, and Jesus coming to the disciples after the resurrection. And he shows up behind locked doors. And Thomas isn't there. But he shows them his scars. And then he breathes on them. But before he breathes on them, and he said, receive the Holy Spirit, he says, as the Father has sent me, so I'm sending you. And you're like, oh, yeah, great, because we think of all his teaching, right? But what has he just done? He showed them his scars. And as the Father has sent me, now I'm sending you. You're like, wow. He shows the scar, like this is the repair of rupture. Like this is the sign of rupture, and I'm here to repair this. This is how I'm sending you. I'm sending you not just to preach the gospel, therefore to mean like just tell the story of a certain set of things, that we're all sinners in need of a Savior, all of which is true. But when we go and say like, this is who I am, and we pull my shirt back, and here's where the spear went in, here's the nail prints, here's the places where I do not have my stuff together, here are the places where I've been broken. I'm willing to do this hard work of repair. I'm willing to do the hard work of forgiveness. And when Jesus says, when people look at you and see how you love one another, that's how they'll know that I'm for real. And so this whole notion that Jesus is doing this isn't just a set of rules to repair ruptures, but this is a way for us to become durably ready for the heaven that's coming, for which I'm just, having these conversations with you and Amy, it just continues to be a great reminder of how grateful I am for the way that you both have been present, the way we've repaired ruptures, but also how you have enabled me to become more durable when it comes to ruptures that I've experienced with other people, and the way you have carefully and effectively loved me. And I'm just really grateful for that.
You're easy to love, Kurt, and I'm honored to be the chairman of the Wisdom Council.
Right on.
All right, we do have an application for this week, and it's going to require you all to grab your journals because we want you to reflect a little bit about where you've been, where you've seen yourself grow stronger, build this resilience because you did the hard work of repair. Maybe it was a conversation you finally had, an apology you gave, a bridge you began to rebuild. How has that healing shaped your resilience? Then think about someone in your life who's shown you what it looks like to repair well, who didn't run from the rupture, but moved toward it with courage. How do they live differently because of it? If it feels right, tell them. A note, a text, a voice memo. Let them know how their work has inspired you. We're all just reminding each other that healing is possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, Pep, it's it's such a time as this where, especially in the town where I live, where there's just a lot of hard things that are happening in Washington, D.C., and never before have we needed this commendation, this invitation more than we need it now.
Yep.
To trust that for us to do this is a way for the Spirit to work in the middle of a pretty chaotic time.
Yeah. Thank you for your work here, Kurt.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you, bud.
And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, we are going to bring Amy in this week.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Hello, our friend.
As always, so good. Kurt, you are easy to love.
I have a list of people that I would like you to send some notes to, and just
yes, I'm happy to do so.
Let them. You can just tell them, contrary to the evidence at hand,
right? Kurt
it's
is
actually
easy to love. I'm happy to. Okay, two things I want to talk about. Pep, when you said that on the tour, the last tour, a tour, yeah.
Oh.
When you just said, you told them to anticipate rupture.
Yep.
And Kurt, like you said, I'm thinking of you ahead of the curve. The curve, that's essentially what a good dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thought
right
that
on.
in and of itself gives them capacity, and resilience. Like just that, because when you said that, Pep, it was like, I imagined if I was on that crew, I would just take a deep breath and be like, I don't have to, there's some part of us that's anticipating rupture and like, what are we going to do with it? And
we know told them. That's right.
You just told them what we're going to do with it. And it's like, we're all holding it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's going to be fun. But yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then another, what kept coming up to me while I was listening was this remembering repairs we have done and the power of that in capacity and resilience. And I think my propensity is to talk about the ruptures that need to be repaired and all the things, all the feelings around that. But I thought, are we talking enough? Is there more to be said about our experiences? Because there's so much power in that.
Yeah, it reminds me of last week's recording, and in the Reach forgiveness resources that we talked about with Worthington. This notion of we do want to go back and kind of commit to it, but then also remember it over and over again. We want to remember this, that this is happening. So, yeah. Because like you both were saying, like with this notion that like if I'm practicing remembering these things, then this becomes my anticipated future, right? And I become more of a forgiving person. And I think I'm just so persuaded of this that when we are walking in the world, when you walk into the pizza shop to order the pizza, and you're a lighter person because you're doing this work, like without even saying it, like they sense it. They sense, oh my gosh, like here's Amy. Here's like one of my favorite customers because there's something about her. Like I might not even know what it is, but they know that there's something there. Something's happening with this.
We show up differently.
Yeah.
Pepper looked like you had a thought.
No, you bring it in the room with you. I mean, it has to permeate from you. And I was thinking about, when you're talking about lifting weights and you've got to if you've never lifted weights before and suddenly you put all this weight on the bar, you're going to get crushed, right? But if you're doing the exercises and you're doing them, and it just becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, over time, especially if I've got a spotter. I mean, I think about Pepper so much. Like I think about your Orange Theory classes are just like they're just rich with metaphor and for stories about how nobody's in competition against anybody there is ostensibly.
Every once in a while somebody comes over and how far did you go there?
Right, but from what I've heard you say, like the instructors, the coaches, whoever, like they're wanting to encourage you to really maximize and to keep you in the orange.
That's right,
and that space for you.
Yeah,
and what I'm seeing next door is people who are working hard.
Yeah, and even like just yesterday, I had Justin, he's pretty much there every morning with me at 7:20. One of the guys there, and after the end of class, he's just like, "Man, thank you so much for pushing me a little harder today." Because we do that for each other too. It's
totally.
I love it. It is very similar to this same kind of thing because we don't do it alone. Like if I could go join Planet Fitness, right? It would be cheaper, and I would go there and I would walk in and I'd be by myself and I'd sort of work out. I'd maybe do a little bit, and and so the big change for me was years ago when I started working out with a partner. John and I started, we would work out, 4 or 5 days a week, every day, and push each other to not only to do it, to like lift heavier weights, but to do it right with the right form and all that, and just really encourage one another to go to the extent that you can, the furthest extent that you can go. And over time, you could really see some change, but it was all because, we pushed one another, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And to your point, see that with the spotter, we can risk and tolerate more. And whether it's physical or rupture and repair, it's...
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and particularly, like Pep, to your experience with your team, like you're in a position of authority. It's one thing if my sibling says to me, or if my colleague says to me, I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity for ruptures here. I wonder. I think we'll be okay. It's another thing for the person who is the parent in the room, who says this, and I'm like, like you said, Aim, like it's a big exhale, it's a big sigh, right? When I know, like, oh gosh, if the parent knows that this, then I'm like, okay, I'll be okay because Pepper's thinking of me. Now, this is the thing, right? People might not even be thinking this explicitly and consciously, but I will tell you, this is what's happening in their mind. To our listeners, who are like, look, you are somebody's. Even if you do not have children, like I can guarantee you are somebody's parent. There will be some role that you play in some system in which you are the parent, and I want you to know that, like, my goodness, you have the capacity in naming and anticipating that there will be ruptures and we will repair them. That you are already in that moment beginning the process of building resilience. Practicing for heaven. Yeah.
As you said that, Kurt, I thought, I was thinking, I'm not a parent, but I'm a parent somewhere. So it's totally. Like, where can I give someone that relief? Like, it's going to happen, and we're going to be okay. We're going to be better for it.
Right. Well, I think even here, I mean, like, we are peers, but how many times have each of us had parts of us that come into the room that feel like they're somewhere between the ages of 4 and 14?
Yeah.
Pep?
I mean, that's happened to me, and I feel like, I have my mom and my dad that I really need to create space for this part of me that's feeling very young and very underdeveloped and naive, ashamed, and all the things, right?
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Yeah, right on.
So good.
All right,
you two.
Good
all right,
day.
everybody.
It's going to be a good day.
Right on. Indeed.
All right. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you. This podcast is produced by Kurt Thompson, Pepper Sweeney, and myself, Amy Chella. Audio production and editing is by Keaton Simons. Video production and editing is done by Mark Gould. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on social media at BeingKnownPod. If you like this podcast, tell a friend. If you love this podcast, tell everyone you know. And please like, rate, and review wherever you listen. Be well, be now.